What up, you weirdos? Dave here, and I like knives. Here to talk to you today about the CRKT Cricket Jettison. This big boy has a blade of 3, a little bit less than 3¼ inches, about 3.2, a handle length of 4½ inches, a width of about 1¼ and a depth of a little bit less than half of an inch. Wearing a blade of 8CR13 MOV steel and handles of full-on slabs of stainless steel with, I might add, very excellent milling out on the inside. There we go, you can see it right there. So they are considerably lighter than it looks like it should be. So that's a plus. Straight into what is great about this blade, the design. This piece caught my eye a very long time ago, and it's taken me until now to get my hands on it, get familiar with it, and then talk about it. I do visually love the aesthetics of this piece. The big harpoon shark fin looking thing, the very slenderness of the handle. Visually, putting this in a box, it just looks like a good piece. And not only that, but they got the pocket clip mostly right. This is a one-position right-hand tip-up deep carry pocket clip. Now, those are rounded screws, and there is no excuse for that. However, it's a good enough clip that you can still wear it. Those rounded screws just mean that if you have a thick lip on your pants pocket, that you may struggle getting it in there. Also, down here on the end of the clip, that doesn't come up very high, so again, you may struggle. In my experience, this is fine. You may see something else though. It is a frame lock, so there is good milling out on the inside here. I do wish, obviously I wish that there was more access to it, because there needs to be a cutout here so that you can access the lock, but there's just enough milling. There we go, you can see it. Just enough milling that it is fine. Push it out of the way, and that big heavy blade comes a-tumbling down. The action on this is also pretty good. I have that on to be desired, but I did take this apart and lube it up and play with it a little bit and get it where I want it. So now the action is, once again, just north of fine, actually. But these are running on Teflon washers. But all of that is due to the heaviness of the blade, due to the weight. This shark fin just builds momentum for it. So it is a manual flipper, and it flips quite nicely. And that's all due to the shark fin and to the extra weight that I will talk about shortly. So overall, solid enough. The handle shape is a little incongruous, but I do kind of like it. How slender it is versus how wide the blade is. Again, when it's open, it gives it a visual appeal. So in this first area, that is enough room for 3 fingers, and then you have another grippy portion, and another area to put your fingers, and your pinky can rest right there. So it feels pretty good in hand. Now, there is no texture on any part of this blade, on any part of this handle, which on a smaller knife would be a huge problem. Go back and watch my M16 video for evidence of me whining about that. But since the handle is so big, and since the clip is where it needs to be on this blade, you can grab it pretty well, decently enough. So that is what That's what I like about this blade. Going into what I don't. I'm not entirely sure what this blade style is. It's a Wharncliffe with a little bit of a belly. Just make it a straight Wharncliffe. It's okay. And that's not actually a huge deal. I don't care about that nearly as much as I care about the rest of it, basically. This harpoon, this shark fin, looks really cool when it's open and gives you a place to put your finger for making draw cuts or doing Wharncliffe things with your blade. But when it's in the pocket, it doubles the width of your blade. So that 1 1/4 inch, that's measured right here. The next thickest portion is right here, and I think that's only 1 inch. So that makes it's not that much more narrow, but you get the point. This makes it so unnecessarily wide. Now imagine that this is a straight flat blade without that harpoon. That looks pretty solid, doesn't it? It's a shame we couldn't have gotten that knife. However, if you take away that shark fin, then it probably doesn't open nearly as well. Yeah, I'll save the rest of the blade for later. Another portion, part of the issue of fit and finish, and this blade does struggle in a half dozen ways. The back spacer doesn't line up quite properly. There are a few portions where, like, it's a little too deep, or it sticks out a little bit, and you have to loosen it up and push it back into place. It's not great. Also, blade centering is... Can you see that? Ah! Earthquake! Blade centering is an eternal issue for this piece. So I have fixed this several times, gotten my Torx bit out, played with the pivot, and centered it perfectly, and then I looked down a few days later, and it's back to the way it was. Now, a bit of a bigger issue, something that I did not actually notice until I watched somebody else's. I can't remember whose video it was, but they made mention of the fact that whenever they close their blade, there's an extra click that shouldn't be in there. It's not just the blade snapping into place, it's the blade hitting the backspacer. And if you can see that scuff mark right there, and there's another one deeper in the handle on the backspacer. So right there. I believe that's what that mark is. There we go. Right there. I believe that is what that mark is the blade bashing into the backspacer, because it's the only thing that it can be. It lines up perfectly. It's where it would be. So I don't understand why that's a problem. This blade has a handle that dulls the blade. I'm not sure if it's because the backspacer is a 1/16 of an inch too thick and they needed to shave off a little bit, or if it's an issue with the pivot, or if it's an issue with the blade itself. But for some reason, the blade is hitting the handle, and that dulls it. That has the potential to make it chip. That's bad for the blade. Sharp things should not be made unsharp by the single thing that is meant to keep it sharp. So it's not great. A bit of a design flaw. Also, bit of a design flaw. Check how thick that spine is. Now, I don't measure that portion because I don't feel like it. What I do measure is its dimensions next to other blades. Now, in my Falsa review, I mentioned how much I absolutely adore everything about this blade, except for the blade itself, because it is too big and too thick to be useful in an everyday situation. Look at that. They're the same size. Now, I ask you, why would you put a thick... I need to fix that centering. I need to play with that pivot. Now I ask you, why would you make a blade super thick? Well, obviously, so that you can make it tougher, so you can make it a hard-use folder. You mean like a Cold Steel Fenwolf, or like a ZT350, or like an Ontario Rat 1? All of these blade spines are half as thick as the Jettison. Half as thick. This thing is literally built for going out and stabbing trees and cutting down a forest. Super tactical, hard-use folder. The spine is half as thick as on the Jettison. This blade is ridiculously thick, and purposelessly so. It's giving it a giving it a thicker spine detracts from its EDC usability. It detracts from its sliceability, if you will. Now, it is still fine. It is still plenty sharp. It is still perfectly capable. My point is that in the long run, it bashing into the handle dulls it. It damages the blade. It having so thick a spine, it takes away from your ability to use this in an everyday situation. Say that you're preparing food or something like that, or how I use most of my knives, cutting apples. Ontario Rat 1 and the Fenwolf were both mainly the Rat 1 because of its flat grind. But both of these were just fine. In fact, the Rat was quite stellar. It was because of its flat grind combined with how comparatively thin the spine is. When you make that spine thicker, you make life more difficult. And you make me not be able to carry it. So, out of 10 stars, I'm ashamed that this is what it is because it was so close to being so much better. Fascinating design, wasted, poor execution on a fantastic design, out of 10. That's my rating here. Cricut sells this online for $50. Amazon sells it for $27. Blade HQ for $32. And I ordered this from Walmart for $27. Don't. Just don't. It's a fascinating concept for a blade, but you don't need this in your life. This does come in two forms: the Jettison full size, this, and the Jettison compact. You can tell the difference because the other one is smaller, and excuse me, and it has a little bit of a lanyard ring hanging off here on the end. From what I believe they are the same price as well. From what I have heard of that one, the Jettison compact, being smaller, being compact, does not suffer from the same issues as this. So the blade hitting the handle, the blade centering, the thickness of the spine, all of these issues, I do not believe are on the smaller one. So if this design fascinates you as much as it does me, just go get the smaller one. Go get the Shrunky. It is a better use of your time than this. If you have questions, comments, or suggestions, let me know down below. And other than that, have a great day.